CBS 58 News presents Eye to Eye, your inside look at the newsmakers and issues facing Wisconsin.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. For more people than you might think, it's the most difficult season of all. We've got helpful information for you this morning about the holiday blues. Our guests are Mary Hayner and Kayla Waldschmidt with Horizon Home Care and Hospice. Ladies, welcome and good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You know, I must admit the response I got from some people when I mentioned today's topic was, oh, what joy. Isn't it true that people, whether they're feeling it or not, really don't want to talk about sadness this time of year?
Well, it's not popular to talk about being sad, and no one wants to hear that you're not ready to prepare for the holidays. So most people that feel that way, I think, try to keep it to themselves, and that's okay to a certain extent. What you say, Kayla?
Absolutely. And I think there's a lot of pressure from family and friends and even from just the general season to put on a happy face and to fake it for everybody.
Right. Yeah, it's okay to feel like Charlie Brown does in a Charlie Brown Christmas. He was like, I just don't feel that holiday spirit for some reason or another. And to admit it sometimes is part of the way to getting over it, I would think.
Absolutely. Yeah, naming it and putting the words to it really helps to be able to not only let other people know how you're feeling, but also to be honest with yourself and not to have to put that mask on for everyone.
Yeah, that phony face, that mask. Let's talk about some of the ways that people, start to feel this way. Obviously, there's a lot of stress during this season. You know, there are parties to go to, there are gifts to buy, there's so much pressure going on that I would imagine it just builds and builds and builds.
I think for a lot of individuals, it's normal to feel some stress at this time of the year, like you said, and also to feel some resistance to all of the planning that it takes, particularly for those families where both the husband and wife are working and single parents trying to prepare for a holiday that has so much hoopla surrounding it. It can make you want to resist doing that and feeling a little bit down in the process. And we believe that there are ways that you can manage that kind of negativism towards these big events, and how you process your way through it, and also how you let go of certain things. And I know Kayla's an expert in this, and maybe she can address how do you do that?
Yeah, we're going to get to the coping mechanisms and so forth, but identifying so very important. Sometimes the emotional symptoms show themselves in physical symptoms. What are some of the physical symptoms, Kayla?
Especially for people who have undergone a major loss and really the grief intensifies during this time of the year, they can start to feel lethargic. They get depressed. They'll have muscle aches and fatigue. And for a lot of people, they might have concentration issues, memory issues. It's hard to focus. However stress shows up for people is how it's going to show up for them this time of year.
And it's not only because of the holiday season, the music we hear on the radio and the messages on the TV and in the stores, but it's also the time of year when we don't have much daylight. I think we're getting into the least amount of daylight during the whole year. And I would imagine the seasonal effect of a disorder or SAD can kick in a little bit earlier too.
I think that is one factor. Another thing that also plays into how you feel about the holidays is what's going on in your year. Have you lost someone? Have you lost your dog? Have you lost your cat? Have you gone through a divorce or had some failures? It seems to be at the end of the year we start to sum up our lives, and then you hear the Christmas music and all the sadness, and some of the songs, not all, some are joyous, but others are somewhat sad, and they cause you to reflect, and that, I think, is what brings on this melancholy that some of us face and resist the process of preparing for the holiday.
On the Horizon Home Care and Hospice website, Mary, you wrote about one year where you just said, I'm not going to celebrate Christmas.
There was a year. We have this blog.
Sure.
Our Grief Center has a blog, and I happen to be one of the authors. And I wrote about a year that I tried to cancel all holiday preparations because I simply didn't want to. I don't remember anymore, which is interesting, what the reason was, but I just didn't feel that I had the energy, and I'm sure it was just the year hadn't been everything I'd hoped, and I didn't have the energy to prepare for Christmas. So I told the spouse we weren't going to have a Christmas tree, and I didn't want to send out any cards, and in fact I didn't. And I pretty much canceled the preparation of Christmas. I made no cookies. And the interesting thing is, it's okay. The holiday still comes. You still celebrate. It's fine. I did join in that day, of course. And it didn't seem to make any difference that I, in my mind, for that preparatory period, canceled the holiday. And Kayla, maybe she can tell you what was going on psychologically with me, because Kayla is a licensed counselor. But I think it's okay for people to live in the moment. And if things are troubling them, why not acknowledge that? And maybe it's okay not to do everything every single year. I didn't, and the holiday came and it was fine.
Yeah, and Kayla, whether Mary knew or not at the time, what she was doing was probably the right thing by just not forcing it, by pushing it, but admitting that, hey, it's not there, and so I'm not going to try and celebrate something that isn't in my heart.
Absolutely. I think people don't often give themselves permission to do what they want to do during the holiday season, whether that's completely canceling the holiday and not decorating, not going to parties, or whether it's modifying traditions. And I think there's a lot of guilt associated with doing that sometimes, but it is so healthy just to give yourself permission to do what you need to do to take care of yourself this season. And your loved ones and your family and your friends, they'll understand. And I think we often underestimate their ability to cope with that and to understand what we need.
All right, we're going to have more tips on coping, managing those holiday blues when we continue our conversation with Mary Hayner and Kayla Waldschmidt here on Eye to Eye. Stay with us. Welcome back. Our guests are Mary Hayner and Kayla Waldschmidt with Horizon Home Care and Hospice, and we're talking about the holiday blues. And this is not to bring you down, but to make you feel better by learning some of these helpful tips to dealing with them, to coping with them. Some people can beat the holiday blues, Kayla, but others, it's just a matter of managing them.
Absolutely. I think the number one way to help manage it is just to have a plan. Acknowledge that it is a rough time of year for you and that you may not want to celebrate or you want to modify your celebrations, and then make a plan to go forward on how you're going to do that. And you can involve your family and friends in that and let them know, I'm not feeling up to it this year. This is what I'd like to do. What would you like to do? Let's find a compromise. But I think have a plan. Otherwise, a lot of people are tempted to throw the covers over their head and try to sleep the day away. And that really brings on depression, and a lot of people find that they just spend the day crying and feeling very alone and unsupported. And so find a place to go that feels safe to you, or a place that you know you're going to get some support that day. At least have a plan.
And there is a difference, holiday blues and depression. Are there ways to distinguish where you may say, I need more than just perhaps family support, but I need some professional help as well?
This time of year, grief intensifies. People do feel more sadness. And I think sometimes that surprises people because they may have felt they have gotten over the loss 1 to 2 years ago or even beyond, but that grief comes back and intensifies this time of year. So that's normal. But if you're not able to get out of bed or function on a day-to-day basis, it's time to get some professional help and make sure that everything's okay.
Mary, one way to cope with the blues, I would imagine, is to help others. Volunteering. There are plenty of places to volunteer this time of year, isn't there?
That's an excellent idea. People who, as Kayla mentioned, stay at home, don't force themselves out, are going to get somewhat stuck in that feeling that they're having. And there are lots of opportunities to volunteer. We have at Horizon hundreds of volunteers. Some work in our hospice inpatient unit, some work in our grief center, calling others who are down. That's an excellent opportunity to tell your story and hear stories. I mean, and to be involved with other patients. I mean, obviously there's the issue of patient confidentiality, but it is a good experience for people that want to help others. And oftentimes helping others pulls you out of how you're feeling.
And starting a tradition too, whether it is volunteering or lighting a candle for a lost loved one, that's another way to help overcome some of those feelings of sadness and anxiety.
And it's every time at this year when you remember those who have gone before. In the years, of course, where the loss is recent, that's when it's most intense. But we all have those feelings every year because your grandparent or your parent is not with you anymore. So that it's normal to have just a little bit of that in even subsequent years, as Kayla already mentioned. And volunteering and helping others and telling your stories sometimes through those volunteer opportunities is a really good way to weather the holidays. And as you mentioned, after. Because there's a normal letdown, of course, as we head into the dead of winter, although it feels like right now we're in the dead of winter.
It does feel like January already, doesn't it?
So.
And Kayla, you mentioned not pulling the covers over your head. Exercise is another way of feeling better.
Exercising, really eating right, taking care of yourself, finding a way to nurture yourself, whether that's taking a bubble bath or going for a walk, playing with your pet, something that soothes you and really helps you nurture yourself. It's so helpful.